Video 3 of Lesson 2 continues our look at the subtraction of mixed numbers symbolically, using what we have called Method 1. Recall in Video 2, we were told there were two situations for Method 1. Here, we focus on Situation B. So for this method, we continue to use only numbers and symbols to complete the calculation. These are our red flags again, just to give you the warning that you really got to be paying close attention here, especially for Situation B. So for Method 1, the first part of this applies for both situations. So we rewrite the mixed numbers so that the proper fractions of the mixed numbers have a common denominator. We check to see if the proper fraction of the first mixed number, the minuend, is greater than or less than the proper fraction of the second mixed number, the subtrahend. And of course, this is what gives rise to our two situations. So in the previous video for Situation A, all of our examples, the proper fraction of the first mixed number was greater than the proper fraction of the second mixed number. Now, though, we move into Situation B. And in Situation B, we start off with the idea that if the proper fraction of the first mixed number is less than the proper fraction of the second mixed number, we have to combine another whole from the first mixed number with the existing proper fraction to create an improper fraction. And when we do this, you may or may not have any other wholes remaining. It depends on the question. We then subtract the whole number portions of the mixed numbers, if any remain. We subtract the improper and proper fractions. And again, we combine the resulting proper fraction with the whole number. So that's our Situation B. That's what we're going to look at very shortly with a few examples. Once we get our final answer, we have to check for simplest form. And as I've said before, this will become clearer with a few examples. So let's have a look. In A, 3 1/5 subtract 1 3/5. I go to the denominators of my two proper fractions first. I see that they're the same. That's perfect. We can compare these two proper fractions easily now. So I have a 1/5 and a 3/5. Well, you should know that 1/5 is definitely less than 3/5. So this is the first example that we've considered now, whereby the proper fraction of our first mixed number is less than the proper fraction of our second mixed number. So this is where Situation B kicks in. So what we have to do is take 3 1/5, and we basically have to rewrite it. So what I'm going to do is picture this visually, just for this one, so you get an idea as to what's on the go. So here's my 3 1/5. 3 wholes, 1/5 of another. We're going to take this particular whole right here, and we're going to break it down into 5 equal sections. It's still shaded. It's still a whole. It's just that I've divided it up. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because I'm going to now rewrite the 3 1/5 as 2 wholes, a 5 out of 5, which is still a whole, and of course I have my 1/5. And what I do then is take these two fractions, the 5/5 and 1/5, and I combine them. So I still have 2 wholes, and 5/5 plus 1/5 gives me 6/5. So what I've created is a new number that has 2 wholes and an improper fraction of 6/5. And that's how I rewrite the 3 1/5. So 3 1/5, it does indeed equal 2 6/5. So I continue on with my question now. Subtract 1 3/5. Next step in the process, we can now subtract the whole number parts. I got a 2 subtract 1, which gives me a 1. And then I subtract the improper fraction, 6/5, and the proper fraction, 3/5. And 6/5 minus 3/5 gives me 3/5. Simplest form for the fraction, so 1 3/5 is my final answer. In B, 2 1/10 subtract 1 1/2. First thing I look at, my denominators of my proper fractions. I got a 10 and a 2. Not the same, so we need to figure out the LCD. And the LCD for 10 and 2 is 10. We'll copy down my 2 and 1/10. That stays the same. That already has a denominator of 10. The 1 and 1/2, though, that will become 1 and 5/10. 2 times 5, 1 times 5. Now I can compare my two proper fractions. I look at the 1/10 and the 5/10. And we know that 1/10 is definitely less than 5/10. Hence, we're in situation B again. Next step in the process, I'm going to take my 2 and 1/10 and I'm going to rewrite it. So I'm going to copy down one whole. The other whole, that's part of the 2, I'm going to put that as a 10 over 10. That's still a whole, just rewriting it. And the 1/10, I just copy it down. Then I combine the 10/10 plus the 1/10, and that will give me 11/10. And scoot that other one whole down. So my 2 and 1/10, that is equivalent to 1 and 11/10. And then I take away my subtrahend, 1 and 5/10. Now I can subtract no problem. Take away the whole number parts. 1 minus 1 is nothing. You could put a 0 out front, but it's certainly not necessary. And then I subtract the improper fraction with the proper fraction. And 11/10 take away 5/10 will give me 6/10. Not quite done. This can reduce. 2 is the GCF for 6 and 10. We will get a final answer of 3/5. In C, 7 1/4, subtract 5 1/3. Check the denominators of the proper fractions, a 4 and a 3. Not the same. We want to be able to compare those proper fractions. That's why we go for the LCD, and the LCD for 4 and 3 is 12. This time I need to rewrite both of these proper fractions with a denominator of 12. 4 times 3 is 12. 1 times 3 is a 3. 3 times 4 is 12. 1 times 4 is 4. Now we have a close look at those two proper fractions. We have a 3 over 12 and a 4 over 12. What do we know? We know that 3/12 is less than 4/12. Situation B. So now we take our minuend, 7 3/12. I'm going to turn that into a 6. So I take away a whole from the 7, but then I take that whole and make it into a 12 over 12. And put down my 3/12. Put it all together. If I add up 12 over 12 and 3 over 12, that gives me 15 over 12. And scoot the 6 down. So 7 3/12 is the exact same thing as 6 and 15 over 12. Take away 5 and 4/12. Good to go. 6 subtract 5 gives me 1. 15 over 12, take away 4 over 12. 15 subtract 4 is 11. 1 and 11/12 is fully simplified. And let's have a look at one more. 4 subtract 2 and 1/6. This time I have 4 wholes. Take away 2 and 1/6 of another. Now our first step in the process is supposed to be to compare the proper fractions, but I only got one proper fraction, the 1/6. There's nothing there associated with the 4. So we do still need to rewrite that 4. So what I do is I take the 4 and I break it down into a 3. And because my denominator is 6 here, the other whole that's associated with the 4, I turn that into a 6 over 6. So 3 and 6 over 6 is still 4 wholes. But what it allows me to do now is to actually subtract these two numbers. 6 and a 6, we can go ahead and subtract, no problem. 3 subtract 2 is a 1. Subtract the 6 over 6 and the 1 over 6, and we get 5 over 6. So 4 subtract 2 and 1/6, 1 and 5/6, and that's simplest form. Now I'd like you to proceed to the next video in this lesson, where we have a look at method 2.